Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. The SEC smacked across the face yet again by a judge. The SEC today hit with sanctions for abuse. Wait till you see. In fact, so let me just tell you this at the outset of the video. We already know that the SEC is a despicable government agency that needs reform from the top down. Kim Jong-Ginsler should not be in charge of this thing. These people, these attorneys, my God, they are outright liars, and they are happy to ruin people's lives if it means that they may get a chance at a win by tricking the judge, right? And we know in the SEC v. Ripple case that the judge called them out, the SEC out for being hypocrites. Remember that? And the most scathing, critique, if you want to call it that, against the SEC in the SEC v. Ripple case was when the judge said that the SEC, quote, lacks a faithful allegiance to the law, end quote. That doesn't normally happen. Comments like that don't normally happen. And so I want to tell you here at the outset of this video, as horrendous and scathing as that was in the SEC v. Ripple case, what happened here today is like that on steroids. The degree to which the judge ripped the SEC to shreds, basically outright calling them liars, it's just, I've never seen anything like that. I thought it was bad and very blunt in the SEC v. Ripple case. This is like that, but on steroids. Way more direct, a lot more to it. It's everything we know about the disgusting SEC. Everything we've been saying about this awful organization, the judge has obviously found that to be the case. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So I'll get into the specifics in just a second, but first I thought I'd highlight this from Stuart Alderati, who of course is Ripple's chief legal officer. And this evening he wrote, "Today a federal court sanctioned the SEC for abusing its unique status to present evidence that was false, mischaracterized, and or misleading. If anyone thinks this conduct by this agency under this leadership is limited to this case, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell." Spot on. Yeah, it's definitely not unique to this case. This is how this agency behaves. That post was reposted on social media platform X by John Deaton's Crypto Law organization, and Crypto Law wrote the following. Judge Shelby's decision highlights what we all know. The SEC acts in bad faith when pursuing innovative crypto companies and will stop at nothing to vilify an entire industry. Spot on. And that's why, again, when in the SEC v. Ripple case, the judge said that the SEC lacks a faithful allegiance to the law, wasn't kidding. And as we highlighted at the time as a community, this is just what the agency is. They're despicable. So the headline here from Cointelegraph, SEC hit with sanctions for its gross abuse of power in debt box case. And again, folks, this is the most direct forward thing I've seen from a judge destroying the SEC. I've never seen anything like this. Not to this degree, anyway. Not to this degree. So that part of it you're going to enjoy. So sit back. Maybe if you want to pause here, maybe pop some popcorn, kick your feet up on the desk. You know, it's going to be a good time. A United States District Court has imposed sanctions on the Securities and Exchange Commission for acting in bad faith, which is a quote, bad faith, in a lawsuit it brought against DebtBox. The SEC initially filed a motion to dismiss without prejudice, but that was denied by Judge Robert J. Shelby, who slammed the regulator for intentionally lying to the court about evidence it obtained to secure a temporary restraining order, or TRO for short, and freeze of DebtBox's assets last August. So, folks, last August, they literally tried to get a temporary restraining order enacted, which would have just destroyed DebtBox. Like, the degree to which this would have financially ruined them, it can't be overstated. That's what they were going for without evidence here. And so here's a quote from Judge Shelby from today. "The Commission's above discussed conduct constitutes a gross abuse of the power entrusted to it by Congress and substantially undermined the integrity of these proceedings and the judicial process," end quote. Folks, there's lots more than that. That is scathing. That's intense. And there's a lot more just like that, which is why I said it's in line with that tone from the judge in the SEC v. Ripple case, but lots more of it and even more intense. That's why I said it's like that, but on steroids here. The, quote, critical evidence the SEC offered to obtain, quote, lacked any basis, end quote, which was nonetheless advanced in, quote, deliberately false and misleading ways, end quote, Shelby explained. So this is the judge saying that the SEC deliberately conveyed this information, deliberately false and misleading ways. AKA, they lied. Okay, that's known as a lie. Absolutely. Here's another quote from Shelby, the judge. The bad faith is inextricable from the abusive conduct, and a sanction of attorney's fees and costs for all expenses resulting from that conduct is appropriate, end quote. And then there's this post from Paul Graywell. He is the chief legal officer at Coinbase, also engaging in a lawsuit, as you well know, with the SEC right now. And he highlighted a key comment from the judge in this case, which reads as follows. This is more from the judge. The commission's above discussed conduct constitutes a gross abuse of the power entrusted to it by Congress and substantially undermine the integrity of these proceedings and the judicial process. The operation of the American judicial system rests on the fundamental proposition that every party who comes before the court is bound by and adheres to the same set of rules, end quote. Yeah, but obviously the judge sees that's not what the SEC was doing. They tried to get away with it. And by the way, the SEC almost got away with this, as you'll see. Just let me get through this in order. But the SEC actually almost got that temporary restraining order. Anyway, piece continues. In its August lawsuit, the SEC claimed DebtBox perpetrated a $50 million fraudulent cryptocurrency scheme amid its operations as a software mining license provider. In requesting the TRO and asset freeze, the regulator claimed DebtBox had already sent $720,000 overseas and would flee to the United Arab Emirates and secretly transfer more assets with it if it was notified of the order. The request was initially approved. However, Shelby later reviewed his initial order and concluded the SEC misrepresented evidence and that the $720,000 transfer was instead sent within the United States. So, folks, they're stating that this transfer, there was a $720,000 transfer. It was an overseas transaction, so you can't trust them, which is why the temporary restraining order and asset freeze was approved. But then after the judge approved of that, looked into it further and was like, wait a minute, this is a transfer within the United States. What are you talking about, SEC? And that's when the S word hit the fan, basically. And the judge was like, oh my God. The judge must have been furious to be straight up lied to like this. You know, because they almost pulled a fast one on the judge. I mean, for a brief period, they had, actually. Here's a post from attorney James Murphy, known as Meta Lawman on social media platform X, and he wrote the following and provided some quotes here too. He wrote, "The judge in the DebtBox case has issued an 80-page opinion sanctioning the SEC for egregious misconduct in the case. The opinion is devastating to the SEC as an institution and to the particular lawyers who committed the misconduct. The judge made it crystal clear that the SEC lawyers did not make an error. They lied intentionally. In an opinion that will surely be cited by litigants across the country for years to come, the judge found that, quote," and here's another quote from the judge, "the critical evidence the commission offered to obtain and defend the ex parte TRO lacked any basis in fact. Yet the commission nonetheless advanced that evidence in deliberately false and misleading ways," end quote. See, folks, I wasn't kidding you. He's just straight up calling them out, as he should, of course. It's disgusting what the SEC has done here. And you can think back just to like the beginning of last year, beginning of 2023, Kim Jong-Gensler was bragging on national television about how they hadn't lost a case. And when any lawsuits having to do with crypto, they won them all. And here we are now. For the last year, it's been loss after loss after loss after loss. They might have gotten one win in a case I know they got some sort of win. I can't think of which one that was now because there's been so much news breaking or developing over the last year. But it's almost been exclusively losses. And the SEC getting called out. So even in the cases that aren't concluded, like the Coinbase one, like the SEC got called out there too. So see what happens there. But I mean, this certainly it's not going to hurt Coinbase that this is unfolded this way, because I mean, it is what it is. There's going to be more scrutiny here now, right? At a minimum. Anyway, piece continues. In December, Judge Shelby gave the SEC a show cause order, a type of court order that requires a party to justify, explain, or prove something to the court. While the SEC accepted its actions weren't forthcoming, the regulator argued a sanction wasn't appropriate. That's right, they didn't want to be in trouble from the judge. Shelby took aim at SEC attorney Michael Welsh for misleading the court and attempting to obfuscate. And he said, quote, Welsh knew his statement from the TRO hearing was incorrect. Rather than correcting the misstatement, he and the commission attempted to subtly shift the language to gloss over and perpetuate the misconduct, end quote. Folks, this is way more intense than any scolding that the SEC got in the SEC v. Ripple case. It just is. This is way more harsh, way more direct, really calling them out here. And so it's the same kind as what we saw in the SEC v. Ripple case. It's more so that it's just to a greater degree. But in terms of, is it the same kind of thing? Yes. Just much more of it. You'll love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. Like, they just straight up lie, and then when they're caught, they're just trying to gloss over. Like, they're trying to trick the judge as if the judge is an idiot. Austin Campbell, founder of Zero Knowledge Consulting, said the SEC staff involved should be terminated and that the agency needs to undergo a reform. Quote, SEC lawyers should have personal liability for such conduct in addition to the agency itself. What is described here is unconscionable for those entrusted with such authority by law. End quote. And so, you know, the part that kind of sucks about this, though, is even though you like to see the SEC get in trouble because they're doing disgusting, despicable things and they're getting called out, which makes it less likely they'll get away with stuff in the future. Because like the judges now know to watch for this, obviously. It's a despicable agency. The downside to all of this is, even though we like to see the SEC get in trouble, you know, the sanctions are monetary in nature, which means it's literally the taxpayer that will be footing the bill for these sanctions as a result of the SEC engaging in immoral, despicable behavior. It's the taxpayer that gets hit with this ultimately. So that's the downside of this. Damn it. But still, like, you love to see the SEC get raked over the coals by a judge. That part's fantastic to see. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.